Bleak House by Charles Dickens, Chapter 61, A Discovery. The months were gliding away, and my dear girl, sustained by the hopes that she had confided in me, was the same beautiful star in the miserable corner. Richard, more worn and haggard, haunted the court day after day, listlessly sat there the whole day long when he knew there was no remote chance of the suit being mentioned, and became one of the stock sights of the place. I wonder whether any of the gentlemen remembered him as he was when he first went there. So completely was he absorbed in his fixed idea that he used to avow in his cheerful moments that he should never have breathed the fresh air now but for Woodcourt. It was only Mr. Woodcourt who could occasionally divert his attention for a few hours at a time and rouse him, even when he sank into a lethargy of mind and body that alarmed us greatly, and the returns of which became more frequent as the months went by. My dear girl was right in saying that he only pursued his errors, and more desperately for her sake. I have no doubt that his desire to retrieve what he had lost was rendered the more intense by his grief for his young wife, and became like the madness of a gamester. I was there at all hours. When I was there at night, I generally went home with Charlie in a coach. Sometimes my guardian would meet me in the neighborhood, and we would walk home together. One evening he had arranged to meet me at 8 o'clock. I could not leave as I usually did, quite punctually at the time, for I was working for my dear girl, and had a few stitches more to do to finish what I was about. But it was within a few minutes of the hour, when I gave my darling my last kiss for the night, and hurried downstairs. Mr. Woodcourt went with me as it was dark. When we came to the usual place of meeting, it was close by, and Mr. Woodcourt had often accompanied me before. My guardian was not there. We waited half an hour, walking up and down, but there were no signs of him. We agreed that he was either prevented from coming, or that he had come and gone away, and Mr. Woodcourt proposed to walk home with me. It was the first walk we had ever taken together, except for the very short one to the usual place of meeting. We spoke of Richard and Ada the whole way. I did not thank him in words for what he had done. My appreciation of it had risen above all words then, but I hoped he might not be without some understanding of what I felt so strangely. Arriving at home and going upstairs, we found that my guardian was out, and that Mrs. Woodcourt was out too. We were in the very same room into which I had brought my blushing girl when her youthful lover, now her so altered husband, was the choice of her young heart. We were standing by the open window, looking down into the street, when Mr. Woodcourt spoke to me. I learned in a moment that he loved me. I learned in a moment that my scarred face was all unchanged to him. I learned in a moment that what I had thought was pity and compassion was devoted, generous, faithful love. Oh, too late to know it now, too late, too late. That was the first ungrateful thought I had, too late. When I returned, he told me, no richer than when I went away, and found you newly risen from a sick bed, yet so inspired by sweet consideration for others, and so free from a selfish thought. Oh, Mr. Woodcourt, forbear, forbear, I entreated him. I do not deserve your high praise. I had many selfish thoughts at that time, many. Heaven knows, beloved of my life, said he, that my praise is not a lover's praise, but the truth. You do not know what all around you see in Esther Summerson, but how many hearts she touches and awakens, what sacred admiration, and what love she wins. Oh, Mr. Woodcourt, cried I, it is a great thing to win love. It is a great thing to win love. I am proud of it and honored by it, and the hearing of it causes me to shed these tears of mingled joy and sorrow. Joy that I have won it, sorrow that I have not deserved it. Better, but I am not free to think of yours. I said it with a stronger heart, for when he praised me thus, I aspired to be more worthy of it. It was not too late for that. Although I closed this unforeseen page of my life tonight, I could be worthier of it all through my life. And it was a comfort to me, and an impulse to me, and I felt a dignity rise up within me that was derived from him when I thought so. He broke the silence. I should poorly show the trust that I have in the dear one, who will evermore be as dear to me as now, and the deep earnestness with which he said it at once strengthened me and made me weep. If after her assurance that she is not free to think of my love, I urged it. Dear Esther, let me only tell you that the fond idea of you which I took abroad was exalted to the heavens when I came home. I have always hoped In the first hour when I seemed to stand at any ray of good fortune, in any ray of good fortune to tell you this, I have always feared that I should tell it to you, I should tell it you in vain. My hopes and fears are both fulfilled tonight. I distress you. I have said enough. Something seemed to pass into my place that was like the angel he thought me, and I felt so sorrowful for the loss he had sustained. I wished to help him in his trouble, as I had wished to do so when he showed me that first commiseration for me. "Dear Mr. Woodcourt," said I, "before we part tonight, something is left for me to say. I never could say it as I wish. I never shall, but I had to think again of being more deserving of his love, of his affection, before I had to think again of being more deserving of his love, his affection, before I could go on. I am deeply sensible of your generosity, and I shall treasure its remembrance to my dying hour. I know full well how changed I am. I know you are not unacquainted with my history, and I know what a noble love that is, which is so faithful. What you have said to me could have affected me so much from no other lips, for there are none that could give it such a value to me. It shall not be lost. It shall make me better." He covered his eyes with his hand and turned away his head. How ever could I be worthy of those tears? If, in this unchanged moment we shall have together, intending Richard and Ada, I hope in many happiest scenes of life, ever you find anything in me which you can honestly think is better than it used to be, believe that it will have sprung up from tonight, and that I shall owe it to you, and never believe, dear Mr. Woodcourt, never believe that I forgot this night, or that while my heart beats it can be insensible to the pride and joy of having been beloved by you. He took my hand and kissed it. He was like himself again, and I felt still more encouraged. "I am induced by what you said just now," said I, "to hope that you have succeeded in your endeavor." "I have," he answered, "with such help from Mr. Jarndyce as you, who know him as well as can imagine him, to have rendered me. I have succeeded." "Well, bless him for it," said I, giving him my hand, "and heaven bless you in all you do." "I shall be better for the wish," he answered. "It will make me enter on these new duties as on another sacred trust from you." "Ah, Richard!" I exclaimed involuntarily. "What will he do when you are gone?" "I am not required to go yet." "I would not desert him, dear Miss Summerson, even if I were." One other thing I felt it needful to touch upon before he left me. I knew that I should not be worthier of the love I could not take if I reserved it. "Mr. Woodcourt," said I, "you will be glad to know from my lips, before I say good night, that in the future, which is clear and bright before me, I am most happy, most fortunate, have nothing to regret or desire." It was indeed a glad hearing to him, he replied. "From my childhood I have been," said I, "the object of the untiring goodness of the best human beings, to whom I am so bound by every tie and attachment, gratitude, and love, that nothing I could do in the compass of a life could express the feelings of a single day." "I share those feelings," he returned. "You speak of Mr. Jarndyce." "You know his virtues well," said I, "but few can know the greatness of his character as I know it. All its highest and best qualities have been revealed to me, and nothing more brightly than in his shaping out of that future in which I am so happy. And if your highest homage and respect had not been his already, which I know they are, they would have been his, I think, on this assurance and in the feeling that it would have awakened in you toward him for my sake." He fervently replied that indeed they would have been. I gave him my hand again. "Good night," I said. "Goodbye." The first, until we meet tomorrow. The second, as a farewell to this theme between us forever. Yes. Good night. Goodbye. He left me, and I stood in the dark at the dark window, watching the street. His love and all its constancy and generosity had come so suddenly upon me that he had not left me a minute when my fortune gave way again, and the street was blotted out by my rushing tears. But they were not tears of regret and sorrow. No, he had called me the beloved of his life, and had said I would be evermore as dear to him as I was then, and I felt as if my heart would not hold the triumph of having heard those words. My first wild thought had died away. It was not too late to hear them, for it was not too late to be animated by them, To be good, truthful, grateful, and contented. How easy my path, how much easier than his. And that is the end of chapter 61.